Welcome, everyone. Welcome back. This is the beginning of the new season, season 4. Here we go. This is the first one of this year that we're doing. So, first one of 2023. Welcome, y'all. So much has been shifting and changing, and I'm so excited to have you guys meet all of the beautiful guests that I've got lined up for this season. And I am just so excited to introduce you to Miss Kari Moore. This woman started off as a peer, student, client, and has just blown me away in such a short time. And I'm so interested in the work that she's doing, which is very like near and dear to my heart because I'm all dark and twisty, as you know, with my Scorpio side of me. So let me get her introduced to you so we can start talking about all things shadow work and all things trauma and all things dark and twisty. All right, welcome to this season of Breath of Life Conversations. Miss Kari, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me. I love things dark and twisty too.
So let's start off with you telling us who you are, what you do, how you got into this work, all the things.
All right. So I am a self-awareness coach. That's mostly what I say. Um, I would say I'm an intuitive, though I think everyone is intuitive. And that's just sort of a thing that I believe goes without saying. I have a knack for shadow, which is not exactly the fun party trick that it sounds like. like um but I do breath work and I sort of work with individuals on like clearing a lot of that stuff out and like sort of taking responsibility for your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors.
One of the things that I absolutely love, and I know that I told you this when we were working together, was that I love the thing, like the names for your offerings, for like how you work with it. Like I absolutely love them. Will you like give us a rundown of like some of your offerings so that people can get a sense of why I love this so much?
All right, so I've got a free course called Honoring Your No, and it's just a simple breath work. That one's the less fun one, but it actually is a very necessary like baseline of like how do you read into that intuitive yes and no, and like listening to your body over your trauma response and over your mind. And then the next one is Owning My Shit, and that's sort of my little course that I created to sort of like help people uh develop more information around like codependency, their trauma responses, play out their history and their timeline to sort of see where they have these patterns that they need to sort of uproot. I'm I'm still toying with names for like my one-on-one coaching series, but for a little bit I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like WTF. Because that's sort of, I mean, that's the overly honest way of looking at like
Mhm.
why people sort of end up wanting coaching is like, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
where are we going with this?
Right. So what was it that really like drew you to this work in general? I mean, I feel like starting off with breath work or starting off with just this kind of like I love the I even though it's your less fun name, I love the honoring your no. I
Yeah,
love that because so many people don't. Number one,
right.
a lot of people are people pleasers. A lot of people are yes
Oh,
people.
yeah.
And while Jim Carrey had a really great movie about saying yes, right? That Yes Man movie, I
Yep.
feel like a lot of times that's actually not the primary problem with people. It's
Right.
more people being able to say no and
It's
have
saying
firm
no.
boundaries.
Yep.
But that's like quite a I feel like that's a little bit of a jump from that to playing in people's shadows and helping them really understand like their traumas and like allowing them to take that in and
Yeah.
release it.
I think it's all kind of connected the way I see it. So the image I end up having in my brain of like the shadow work is if like you look at like kind of like a cross section of the earth and you've got like the core and like the outer core. And that's like all of our core wound, that like illusion of separation, this, and like all of that, like all of our shadow work stems from those illusions of like where we are separate from others and where we are separate from ourselves. And then we have like all those pipes of like magma that come up from there. And those are the ways they individually show up for each of us. And maybe that's like our rejection wounds, our abandonment wounds, like where we don't feel enough, where we feel too much. Our relationships to shame. I think it's also our unprocessed rage and sadness and grief that we haven't dealt with. Like shadow shows up in all of that.
Mm.
And then the tectonic plates, the things that shift and grind, that's our nervous system.
I love this analogy. I
Yeah,
love
so that's how
it.
I view it, because I like, you can't really do the shadow work without touching into the body, and you can't just do like the trauma work or like the nervous system work without sort of understanding what's underneath it and what's like what is like setting those things aflame.
Well, and you know me, I absolutely 100% agree with like everything has like the two sides, the spiritual and the
Oh yeah.
body, right? And the physical. So like I absolutely love, and you guys now see why I love this woman so much and the work that she does. It's so good. And because you don't, I feel like there's so many people who say that they are doing this work, but they come at it from only one perspective. And while that's helpful and
Yeah.
useful in for a lot of people and has been in the past and all of that stuff, I really do feel today actually I just used a new analogy that I really really loved, was like we need upgrades, right? If we think about computers from the 1980s to the
Right.
computers that we have now,
Oh
totally
yeah.
different. We've been upgrading for years. The way in which we process our traumas, our shadows, like you were saying, the work that you're doing, and by making it all encompassing with the body and with the
Right.
energetics, the trauma, right? The stories, the narratives that we're telling,
Right.
having programming, having offerings that exist solely to connect them
Oh yeah.
is just now starting to be a thing.
Right.
So, knowing that, like, you're kind of on the forefront of stuff here, does that, like, worry you at all? Like, are you like, "Oh, man, trendsetter, do I wanna do this?" Trailblazer.
Um, and well, and then that's funny because the other part of me is like, I feel like I see so many other people doing it in their own way. And they're like such beautiful ways of going about it. I think I sort of view it as going in about it the best way I know how, with using the language that I have, because I don't sound like any of the spiritual people like that I've come across. And no matter how much work I seem to do on myself, I don't fucking sound like that. So and so I'm like, all right, so if there's me, I know I'm not alone. Like we're never alone in our processes. Like there's always other people that are going through the same stuff or have like similar points of view.
Is that what you would say is, like, the thing that really truly sets you apart is the, like, the how you sound, the language that you use?
I think that sort of is probably the thing that sets me apart. I had a reading once and they were like, you're for the salty souls. And
Which I feel like, it's kinda like that Alice in Wonderland quote, with, like, the Mia Wachowski version where she's like where the Mad Hatter's like, "Let me tell you a secret, like, everybody's mad, but all the best people are," right?
right. Oh yeah.
Like, I absolutely agree with that. I feel like that's another reason why I felt like you and I connected so strongly too, is because I really have an aversion to like churching things up or like handling things with kids gloves.
Yeah.
Things are hard. Life
Oh
is
yeah.
hard. It's supposed to be.
Oh yeah. And we can't gloss over so many experiences that are happening in this world. Like the systems of oppression, I think, and the way we have internalized those systems of oppression are also built into that shadow work. And it's all things we have to uproot. Because if we're
Mhm.
not doing that, we're not really moving out of these systems. Like we can
No.
cover them up and gloss them over, but the truth is they're there whether we want them to be or not. And it's
Yeah.
sort of that old saying where they say, in order to get in order to get through it, you have to go through it. And especially when it comes to emotions. And this is one of those things where like you can't just pretend it's not there or just look at it and be like, yep, that's it. and we're done. Like, that's, you kind of have to feel into all of that, and like the grief that can come up from that, the different layers of that. It's not a simple thing.
Because there's so many different types of shadow work, and because, as you were saying, like these systems have in some way either created certain shadows or have enhanced certain shadows that we all have to like go through or process
Right.
through. What do you think through your work and through your practice has been kind of one of the most prevalent ones? Like, is there a particular type of shadow that sticks out most for you that a lot of clients come with?
Oh,
And if so, or if not, what do you think, or not, what do you think? What is the first thing that you typically do to like start work with somebody through their shadow work?
I don't know if there's like one that's like the most common, just because I feel like there's several that are the most common, and usually it's the like not feeling good enough and like the perfectionism. And one that I is dear to my heart, but mostly because I feel like this is the one that impacts me the most, is like the righteousness of like, I am so right about this particular subject.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I'm so guilty of this one myself, where like, but I'm right. And like, but we get so wrapped up in being right that we can't, we like, we're not going to convince other people that we're also right usually. Like, and we're like going to just come to loggerheads. So how can we come to a place where like we can disagree? Not like, I know that there's definitely subjects that we can't really agree to disagree because like they're awful. And I don't think we're ever also going to convince people. Some people.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I love that. I love it. I love it because I agree. If there was one shadow of mine that I've had to work on consistently, it would be that self-righteous indignation that like I
yeah,
know best.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that
Like it's,
everybody's life would just be so much better if they listened to me.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Like I'm brilliant. Like everyone should just be listening to this. And it's like everyone's got their own path.
Yes.
And those are things that need to be respected. It doesn't also mean that we can't create boundaries around it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With let's take that one as an example, that righteousness that we sometimes can feel, or a lot of the times
Yeah.
feel, when you've got a client that comes to you and you realize like this is a problem. Like we
Right.
really need to like earth this out.
Right.
Whether they recognize that or not, what is the first thing that, or what is one of your techniques that you start people on, just to give people a sort of idea of how it is that you work?
So some of it's actually like more of like a subconscious programming thing. And I
Nice.
have a tendency to mirror people's energy back to them.
Love it.
And that's usually where it ends up pissing people off the most, because they don't want to see their own energy. They don't want to experience their own energy in that state. And so it's harder for me to like talk about something in a like in a in a specific sense when it's more of a like relative to the conversation.
But
Um
I
yeah.
think you bring up a good point though, that like one of the things that you do make people aware of, because like we were saying, they may be aware, they're coming to you, they may be like, all right, Carrie, like I've got a serious self-righteous problem.
Right.
Or they may be coming to you going like, I just don't understand why my life
Right.
sucks.
Yeah.
Why does my world suck?
Well, and I think the biggest takeaway that we can bring from all of this, which like it's not new and we hear about it all the time, is self-compassion.
Yes.
And to me, I think that's like the root of all of it. And like, how can we find compassion for ourselves even in the moments that it's a stretch? Like our intrusive thoughts are telling us like, I can't believe you said that. Why would you say that? Like that's awful. Da 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 da. Like, how can we cut that off and find kindness?
Yeah.
Because if we aren't able to find that kindness for ourselves, then we're also not going to be able to find kindness for other people and their experiences.
That is one of the things that like in my practice and how I work with people, I usually tackle that like within our higher self, because that's, I feel like, the one place where whenever I hear somebody who's like, oh, well, I heard my higher self say this, and I'm like, that is definitely not what your higher self would say.
Yeah.
Because my goal is for them to hear nothing but self compassion, right? And that
Right.
love and that support coming from it. And that really is like, if we're being very honest with ourselves, like our higher self is showing up
Right.
in that way, right? And so
Yep.
whether you're training yourself, you're doing this, I love this subconscious reprogramming that you call, as you call it, whether you're programming yourself to like bring that out, and like really like it feels like you're pushing the ego aside and you're saying,
Yep.
step aside, like, thank you, I realize that you have a place in my life, it's just not right here and right now.
Right.
And letting yourself evolve into your higher self, or whether it's like in my practice where I actually like pull somebody's higher self forward and say, I need you to have a conversation with them, and I
Right.
need you to let me be your interpreter here, because I'm not exactly sure if you're going to be able to hear the self-compassion because you don't
Right.
have it for yourself.
Right.
I absolutely agree with you that when we can get to that place,
Yep.
our whole world shifts
Right.
and everything becomes either clearer, more focused, our choices become better.
Oh yeah, and it's a process to even get there, because I think the first step is even just like acknowledging the fact that there's a voice there that's on that negative feedback loop, and then acknowledging that it's there. And then it's, how do I pause it, or at least like realize that that voice isn't truth. It's
Mhm.
not telling me the truth about myself.
Yes. Do you find that there are certain it I'll say it like this, certain places people get to in their lives where working with you kind of feel like, you know what, they're not ready, or you're like wondering, like, how do I get them to this place? So like, how do I get them to this place of acceptance and wanting to like look at it? Or maybe there are clients that are like too afraid to dig down. Or do you find that the clients who usually come to you are the ones that are ready and they're saying, like, I know that I've got some work to do?
I think they're the ones that already know that there's work to do, and they're ready for that. And I think if if someone comes to me and they're not ready, we're not really going to gain a lot of ground. And I'll say that like usually we end up working through like we're pulling up some goals that'll help bump people up against their edges. Because that's
Mm,
also usually when that shadow comes out. And also, I would like to say that like the shadow work, and especially when you're working with a coach, it needs to be a conversation. Otherwise, it's a projection. Because
yes.
like I can be like, I feel like this is a shadow, but it needs to be a conversation about like what's coming up for the other individual.
Yeah. And that's a really good point to make, because so many people, it's actually coming has come up in my around in like my sphere in various conversations of what's the difference between a projection and your intuition. Or, and usually the word isn't projection, it's judgment. What is the difference between a judgment that
Right.
I'm making towards somebody and me using my intuition? Because I'll be telling people like, I know I know this to be true. Like, I'm sorry, you don't have to like it.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I know. And a lot of people for so much of my life were like, Abigail, you're just judging me. Like, you're just judging me, you're judging my choices, you're just making a judgment, right, about this
Hmm.
particular situation. And at the time, I couldn't contradict them because I didn't have the language of no. I mean, yes, there sometimes I won't lie, like I sometimes fall
Yeah.
into it,
Well, and
like
sometimes
I'm
it's,
projecting.
if we've already experienced it, it makes it easier to witness it in someone else.
Yeah.
So in some ways it's a projection, but it's also something, I know this and I feel it.
And I also feel too like one of the best parts about you and your work is that hopefully, right? We'd hope, right, that
Yeah.
you have done the work that you're asking other people to do.
Yes.
So
And continue
any
to do the work.
right? So anything that could come up where you're like, you know what, I'm really in my feels about this, you've done the work, or you can recognize it quicker. So you can be like, okay, hold on. Carrie, pause, right? Or
Right.
Abigail, pause, right?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes I have to do that in the moment where I'm like, Abigail, just hold on. Like, check yourself. you know, yes, you experience, don't get into your feelings here, step aside, rise your vibration here. How can you say this in a way that's does not come across as judgmental? And sometimes I feel like when I'm working with clients, a lot of the time for me, it's me just putting out a little prayer saying, please let the person who is sitting across from me
Right.
going to take this with an open heart and an open mind. They don't have to agree with me right this second, but
Hmm.
maybe something that I say, while not 100% correct, maybe they'll walk away, they'll take it with them, they'll let it they'll let it sit,
Yep.
and they'll continue to do the work.
Right.
And then something will snap for them.
It's
And all of
planting
a
the
sudden,
seed.
yes. And then that just helps them. I feel like that helps them activate their own intuition
Oh
to
yeah.
then be to start processing it in a different way.
Right. And the goal ultimately is like, I'm not interested in being someone's healer. Like, I will show you how to heal yourself, but like, I don't want to take on that responsibility of healing you. That's a you job, not a me job. And
That's
that's
so
what
interesting.
and that's why I also like that's why my the one course is owning my shit, because I need to own my shit, which means you need to own your shit. We're each responsible for owning our own shit.
I I have to be very honest, like, I don't think I've ever really walked myself through that, mostly because I see myself as a healer all the
Yes.
time. Like, that's, like, my thing. But at the same time, when I look at the courses and how I, like, go about interacting with clients,
Right.
and, like, as you know, like, I tend to give suggestions. Here are some
Right.
things you could do,
Right.
right? I'm not like, oh, here, let me do all the work for you. And
Right.
on some level, it's probably because I like thoroughly agree with you that like it's draining. It would be
Oh
draining if
yeah.
I literally took on everybody's stuff. And
Yep.
I immediately like what's coming to me are like the shamans down in Peru and that's literally their job is like people come to them going,
Yep.
I'm losing my hearing or I'm losing my eyesight or I've got this like muscular dystrophy.
Yep.
Please lay your hands on me and heal me. And this poor shaman is like wiped for days. Like they
Oh
literally
yeah.
like passed out. They like they're half dead. They've got a whole team of people who literally like pick them up and carry them into a dark room so that they can be like,
Oh yeah.
sequestered. And I'm like, I don't want that to be me.
Oh yeah. I yeah, neither and same here. I think part of the healing process is showing them where they can heal themselves. Cuz like even with like the session I had with you, like you helped provide information that was needed, but then was also like, but now here is what you need to do going forward.
And like you said, being able to own it. And
Yep.
for me, I love how you say it of owning your shit and how I had always been thinking about it, I won't steal your stuff.
Right.
but but of being like, honor your choices.
Yep.
Like everything that you do moving forward, now you recognize like before everything before was also a choice. But the difference now being you understand that it's a choice. You understand it's
Right.
a choice to be sick. You understand it's a choice to whatever. And even knowing that you may be contracted into something, right?
Mhm.
Like I think of people with chronic illnesses that knowing that you've contracted, well, you contracted, that was a choice. That was a choice that your soul made
Right.
well before stepping in. And when you understand that it is a choice, then I feel like that can also open us up to exactly what your course is all about of owning your shit
Right.
and being able to step into it. Do you find that people leave your sessions just feeling so empowered with themselves? Like, I can do anything.
I would say sometimes. Sometimes yes. And then sometimes like I mean, I don't know about you, but like even in my own healing, there have been times where I'm like, oh shit, like one more thing. Like, and it's hard sometimes to not view it as like one more thing to add to the list.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think now, especially in this time period, one of the things that we all need to very like strongly push is this: please do not get stuck in these self-developmental cycles.
Oh yeah.
Definitely had conversations with other clients where they're like, well, I've been working on this one thing, this one trauma, this one whatever. And I'm like, stop. Like, stop. What was your goal? One,
Right.
like, what was your goal? Have you reached it? Right. If you feel like you haven't reached it, why do you feel like you haven't reached it? Breaking it down in that way so that you don't end up just spending months after months after months and working on the same thing over and over and over again. And for me, that seems miserable
Oh yeah.
to be on this track and now feeling this massive shift on the planet, in our own energy, in our developmental consciousness, that we are able to say, like, enough of this, enough is enough.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I'm going to make progress moving forward, but I'm not going to spend the next 6 years in therapy going over the same childhood trauma.
Oh yeah. Part of it is like that perfectionism and how it can show up in other places. And also, at what point can I allow myself to just accept who I am as a natural part
Yes.
of my life? Like I need to be able to just accept myself. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that aren't going to come up that I need to work on. It doesn't mean self-healing stops full stop, but like I I have to stop like driving myself to feel like I'm never going to be fixed because that's not
Mhm.
really like it's in the journey and it's a lifelong journey.
Yes. Do you feel like there is a certain level of shadow that we just have to accept like that? Or do you feel like we don't have to accept any shadows? That's not really it. Accepting ourselves doesn't mean accepting your shadows. Or do you feel like, you know, accepting ourselves is accepting the shadows?
I think accepting yourself is accepting the shadows and understanding that like I mean I don't think we're always going to be able to get away from like ever having shadows. And unless you're literally Buddha or Dalai Lama and like that is your path, in which case more power to you. But I think that people have their shadows and they'll always come up. And like and it's sort of like going back to my comparison of like the earth and like volcanoes, like some of
Mm,
them are dormant, some of them are extinct and have been dealing with and they've left a scar behind. And then sometimes they're like what you visibly see is it doesn't look like it's doing anything, but then like there's like some small vent of lava sneak or magma sneaking out the back that you can't really see.
right.
Yeah.
How would you explain it to somebody when they're like, well, if I'm always going, like, using that analogy, right? Like, well,
Hmm.
there's always going to be like a little bit of lava like trickling out.
Right.
How do you how would you explain it to somebody who then like takes that and hears that and says, well, then what's the point of me doing work on my shadows at all if really what it comes down to is just accepting who I am?
Because if you don't know what those are, then you're always going to allow someone to tell you what they are.
Mm. Yes. Preach.
So like it's about coming up to that self-awareness of like what is mine, what is yours. And I do operate from the point of view that we 1000% need community and community is needed in these spaces and in the healing space because sometimes part of healing is having someone reflect the positive attributes that you have back to you. And you can't get that in a vacuum. You can't always get that when you're only working on yourself by yourself. And there's a piece where if you don't know yourself, then someone's always going to be able to tell you who you are. And
Yeah.
like and it'll be harder to discern like what is mine and what is yours. And you end up becoming enmeshed in that person to constantly tell you, "Oh, well, like please tell me about this for me." And that's the work for my optic is owning who you are, trusting that who you are is a work in progress, messy, and you are already whole as you are, even with the shadow and the shit that comes up.
Yes. Holding that duality is one of, I think, the hardest things that any of us can ever really like come to terms with.
Oh
And
yeah.
fully understanding that like that's kind of like one of the reasons why we're on planet Earth is like
Oh
about
yeah. Oh yeah. Like, yeah. The people who like I have like my righteousness is in that whole like, no, like butterflies and rainbows. And I'm just like, I didn't come here. I didn't come to Earth School to like stay up in the clouds. Like I came to Earth School to be in Earth School.
With how our society is, do you think that what you were just talking about people, if you don't work on it, somebody is going to try to tell you what your shit is?
Oh yeah.
Is this something that you see like very clearly as like one of, if not the primary like issue within like just collective society and like collective consciousness? I feel like it's very like strong within our social media for sure.
I think it's strong within the social media. It's definitely within the collective. I think what I see a lot of in the collective is um, the seeking of sameness for safety.
Explain that.
Meaning, instead of needing everyone to have the same opinion as you.
Just so that you don't have to get into arguments, just so that
Right.
you don't have to
Right.
risk something
Right. And I
by
think
being
oh yeah, like I think, and if or it's like getting everyone to believe, dare I say, like the same religion or like stuff like that and that sort of thing. Uh, sorry
right.
for that. But like it's sort of like if you don't believe this, like we're now going to create laws that like will force you to believe this. Like, and it's like, and I think the shadow behind that is this fear of like the sameness, like or like not the fear, like the fear of difference and the fear of the other.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I absolutely 1000% agree with religion as like one of the biggest like proprietors. Is that the right word that I'm looking for? Um, like issues within our society, the thing within our society
Yeah.
that does that,
Yeah.
that
Like,
really does try to force people into a certain way of being.
right.
And that's not to say that I have anything against faith, spirituality. I don't. I
Same.
absolutely love it. I feel like if you're a person that says, but Abigail, like I really love religion because it provides me with some sort of structure, that's that's beautiful and that's great. And I won't ever like take that away from you. I just hope that at the same time that you're excited about the fact that it gives you structure, something that you feel resonates with you, the different like rules or whatever that,
Mm-hmm.
going to mass every Sunday, you know, all of those different types of
Yep.
things, that you also have the wherewithal within you to say, while that's helpful for me, it does not have to be helpful for everyone.
Correct.
Right?
Uh, oh yeah. And like that poison of shame that sort of ends up filling everything.
Yes. Yes. This feeling that you need to like self-flagellate just so that you can
Right.
somehow make yourself worthy of connection with source, connection with God, connection with your higher self, whatever it might be,
Right.
right? Even just to talk to the saints that are just like one step above you, you have to somehow make yourself good enough to get up there.
Oh yeah.
I really wish like of all the things that religion would step up, and I feel like on some in some regards and for some people within certain religions they are trying to move to this
Mm-hmm.
where they're trying to not have there be as much shame or blame. They're trying to
Right.
stand up and shift the energy really
Oh
around
yeah.
that have come before. So I don't want to totally bash like
Oh no,
every
like
religion
and
out
I
there.
like oh yeah, and I follow people and I follow like different religious like figures and like who are like leaders of churches, but they also have a broader point of view that there isn't just a singular path.
And allowing for people to then continue to do the work, right? That we've been
Right.
speaking about
Exactly.
in whatever way helps them. And it honestly, like one of the best things about the work that you do is that it does provide people with another option,
Oh
right?
yeah.
You don't have to go to therapy for years if they don't want to. They can
Right.
have X amount of sessions with you and come to this place where they have done the work and then be able to decide, do I need more? Do I need more guidance? And if they do, beautiful, you're there. And if not, you have given them so many tools to be
Right.
able to take with them that means that they can continue this work
Oh yeah.
without feeling like they're still broken.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely a proponent of like therapy, and I am not a therapist myself. So like there is a limit to like what I can work on. Like if someone is in crisis, like I am not the person that can help you.
Sometimes I feel like therapists aren't the people
Oh
that people
yeah.
need when they're in crisis.
Oh yeah. I am trauma informed, but I am not but I'm not a first responder for trauma. And
Completely understand.
oh
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And but yeah, like it's sometimes people need a framework or just even someone to like be there and be like, guess what? You're not a bad person.
And you got this, so just breathe.
Yep, breathe through it.
Yep, just relax as much as you can.
Yep,
When you get to where you can, we'll try to get you a little bit better, a
right.
little bit over, right?
Oh yeah.
This has been such an amazing conversation, Kari. I appreciate you so much. Can you tell everybody where they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can work with you?
All right. So I'm on Instagram at I am Kari Moore. And I have a website, carrymore.me. I am co-hosting a retreat this summer, and if anybody's interested in coming to Northern Michigan, it's at a lighthouse.
Yay!
Um, yeah. And my and
What
you
is
can work.
what is that going to be? What is that retreat going to be like? What is that? What should people expect?
So the retreat is called Let Your Soul Shine. And it's myself with a local yoga teacher. And so I'll be doing breath work. And the themes are refusal, rewilding, and refraction. So so it's a sort of like a breath work around the honoring your no, but it's an hour and a half long extended breath work session on that. And then feeding into the parts of like, what is something you need to say no to in your life, and like what is keeping you from shining out, and then sort of like the empowerment of like actually like taking that step to shine.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Guys,
And it's at a historic lighthouse, so why not?
so of course, let yourself shine. I love this. I love
Yes.
this. People are probably going to be like, Kari, is this really you? I 100% believe that this is you. But after hearing the other titles of your courses and things, but okay. So I will make sure that all of these links and all of the ways to contact, follow, sign up for her courses in the retreat will be all down in the show notes down below. Please, please, please follow, if not book a session with her. Definitely one of the most informed people that I have met on shadow work. And you know me, I don't say that lightly. So just understand, like, I do not promote people often when it comes to shadow work, because a lot of the times I feel like people don't run clean energy. And I am very, very, very strict about, if you're going to do this work, please, please, please run clean energy, because you never know what it is that's going to come up. You never know what it is that you are going to come up against. And I want everybody to very much understand that Kari is somebody who has done her work. I have worked with her myself as a client, and I know her energy very well at this point. Please understand that this work is vital, and it's something that is hard to do, but you don't have to do it alone. So Kari is one of the best people to be able to do this work with. If you are interested in working with her, like I said, all the stuff is down below. If you're interested in working with me, also check out all the stuff down below. I will see you next time for the next Breath of Life conversations. If this conversation sparked you, made you get excited, please like, comment, and subscribe below. Pass it on to your friends. Let them know what's going on. And we will see you next time for the next Breath of Life conversations. Bye, friends.